Just taking the step to look for help, that takes real courage. So if you're here, trying to find a path to healing that you can trust, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to walk through a guide for finding scripture-grounded care that is genuinely safe.
And this quote really just says it all, doesn't it? Deciding to seek help isn't a sign of weakness at all. It is an act of profound courage. It's you taking a brave, important step toward your own well-being. But that's the tough part, right? When you're at your most vulnerable, you suddenly have to make this huge decision. Who can I actually trust with my story? Well, that's exactly why we're doing this explainer, to give you a clear framework so you can make that choice with real confidence.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to walk through 5 key areas. We'll start with what makes counseling such a sacred responsibility. Then we'll look at a counselor's character. We'll dive deep into how scripture is used, which is so important. Then we'll cover ethics, and we'll wrap it all up with a super practical checklist you can use immediately.
Okay, first things first. Let's talk about the foundational mindset that a safe counselor has to have. It's really all about them understanding the true weight of the work they do.
So here's the bottom line. A safe counselor sees their role as so much more than just a professional service. They get that it's a sacred responsibility. They understand they're being invited into a space where fear and pain are very real. So as you talk to potential counselors, listen for that. Listen for a sense of humility and stewardship about their role. And that idea of sacred responsibility, it's directly connected to a counselor's inner posture, their character. In fact, their character is probably the most important safeguard in the entire room.
This is such a critical point from our source material. Just having good intentions is not enough. You can have a counselor who is totally sincere, but if they're driven by pride or a need to perform, well, the person seeking help is the one who ends up getting hurt.
And the difference is pretty stark. You see, a counselor who operates with humility is teachable. They know they don't have all the answers, and this is key, they actually invite feedback and oversight. On the flip side, a prideful posture means they act like an expert and often work completely alone. That humility, that's the telltale sign of someone you can probably trust.
Okay, this next section, it is absolutely vital. Our source material points out that one of the biggest differences you'll find in biblical counseling is how the Bible itself is actually used. Is it being used as a tool for healing, or is it being used like a weapon?
So let's break this down. On one side, you have what's called proof texting. This is when someone just throws a Bible verse at you like a slogan or a quick fix spiritual band-aid. It almost always feels dismissive, like they're rushing past your real pain. But the other, much safer approach is relational truth-telling. This is when scripture is handled carefully, with context and compassion. It actually makes space for your complex story and aims for deep transformation, not a simple patch-up. A safe counselor walks with you through scripture. They don't just quote at you. So, a humble inner posture is essential, but it has to be backed up by external structures. And that brings us to ethics. Think of them as the guardrails that keep everyone safe. The source guide makes a brilliant point here. Faith and professional ethics are not enemies. They are 2 layers of accountability that work together. A safe counselor embraces both, the biblical call to be wise and protect the vulnerable, and professional standards like confidentiality and clear boundaries. It shows they care enough to be safe. Now, after looking at all these internal and external factors, what if I told you there's one simple question that can tell you almost everything you need to know about a counselor's humility and their commitment to safety?
That's it. That's the question. Are you under supervision? See, any counselor working in total isolation is at risk of blind spots. Supervision isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of maturity and wisdom. A positive, open yes to that question is a massive green flag. But if they get defensive or dismiss the idea, that is a major red flag.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. We're going to turn these concepts into a practical toolkit that you can start using right away in your search for a safe counselor.
I want you to think of these as patterns to look out for. So, green flags, they welcome your questions, they have clear written policies. Red flags, well, we just talked about dismissing supervision, blurring professional boundaries, or using scripture as a weapon to shut you down. These aren't just little things. They really reveal a person's entire approach to care.
So how do you actually use this? Well, this checklist, taken right from the guide, is basically your script for that first phone call or email. You can ask these questions directly. They cover everything we've talked about, how they see their role, how they use scripture, if they're accountable, and if they're even a good fit for you.
So as we finish up, I really want to leave you with this powerful question. Asking these things isn't about being suspicious, it's about being a wise steward of your own sacred story. It's about finding someone who has truly earned the right to hear it.
This explainer was based on the guide from Restoring Hope Ministries. Their goal, and our hope for you, is to give you the tools you need to find care that isn't just biblical, but is truly safe, humble, and accountable.